Thank you for staying with us. It's some 38 minutes off the top of the hour. Time now for us to get into the news review. And we're joined by the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa, Sulemana Brahima. Just before we get to him, let me just let you know that the news review is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. You ought to take advantage of that. Here's where you can locate us. Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, Anaji Estate, in Tema Community 22, Techiman, in Hanswa and Esiama and Zima. Reach us on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But it's only the beginning of the news review. Sulemana Brahima joins us for this conversation. Mr. Brahima, I saw you in the background patiently waiting. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Two things I want you to reflect on since we've not spoken about them. Still, our very own Christian Achu can't be found. And then, on the other end, we've seen these senior citizens picketing the Ministry of Finance. Picketing. We've seen a former Chief Justice, Sifaya Kufu, show up there. I mean, it was unexpected. Now we've seen Prof as well showing up, Professor Sam, a former Vice Chancellor, also showing up there. These senior citizens are saying, we've paid our dues. What you're doing is taking a toll on us medically, in whatever shape or form, and this is simply not right. It's simply not on. Quick reflections on these two before we get into other stories in the papers.
Certainly, the Christian Achu incident or development is a very, very worrying one. And at this stage, I just would want to hope that the earlier stories that we were hearing, there should be some modicum of truth in there so that we can all be comforted. Right. It should be that, yes, he was taken up and maybe whisked to a hospital that we still don't know about. We can only have extreme hopes that if he is still under the rubble, then of course, by some godly miracle, he should be alive. So I would say, well, we shouldn't lose hope yet for, indeed, maybe he may have been rescued to a facility and out of the commotion, it's difficult to still track where he was taken to. And then the other thing is to say, well, even if he's still under the rubble, by some divine intervention, it should be said that the entire place did not collapse and there's still space for him to navigate around, get some water, get some food, and so on. So we just hope and still pray that some miracle would happen for our brother to be alive and well so that he can reunite with his family and the people of Ghana who love him so much. On the issue of the picketing by our fathers and mothers and grandfathers and grandmothers, I have wondered why a nation would want to treat its senior citizens to such a humiliation at this time of their lives. It's a very, very troubling development. And I don't know how the government, officials in government, how even the president is taking this, because these are people of his age. There's this man who keeps saying, I'm 81 years, and to do what you're doing to me is basically to sentence me to death and to get me out of this world earlier than perhaps it would have been. These are colleagues of the president in terms of age. These are colleagues of Osafo Mafu. These are colleagues of Freya Koto. These are colleagues of all those people, old people in government, who, for many of them, as a result of retirement and perhaps wanting to get something to do, then they fix themselves in political parties, and when their parties in power is in power, they take up positions and continue to, sort of create the mess that we are all in. I don't know whether we've gotten to a point where their monies have already been taken, and basically it is just deceiving them that you still have a chance to opt out or to stay in and so on. That is what really I would want to believe. Other than that, I don't think that any government would have that um, I mean, that I don't want to say their confidence, but really that is what it is to treat people of this age to such a humiliation, letting them picket at the finance ministry, some perhaps holding stakes and all of that. And then you have people like Gabi Ochredako, come out to say what he said against the former Chief Justice.
Yes, I saw the tweets, and at the end, I think the sixth one he put up, suggesting that she may be doing this for some popularity, that it's belated, it's very late in time. In fact, I could just fetch it even as you go on with your
No, it's
thoughts on what
absolutely
he shared.
ridiculous. And well, sometimes you don't want to blame people like that who see nothing wrong with what is happening, who perhaps are fine and so feel that everybody should be fine as they are. And persons who perhaps, even as we are digging to the bottom, do not see anything, and they are continuing to help the government to dig further. But otherwise, I don't see why people like Gabi would come out to say such a thing against, such a respected person when the government needed someone to lead the COVID-19 trust fund. She was somebody that they deemed so credible to let her lead that initiative. And this is a person who is now asking, so you said you've borrowed so much and we are in this ditch. So where is the money? What did we use the money for? And this is a fundamental question that every Ghanaian is asking. That yes, this government took up an economy that certainly was thriving, borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, got billions in COVID-19 relief funds, and yet crashed the economy. And people like Gabi, I am just wondering, if it was a party like the NDC that was in power and we were realizing what we are going through now, I don't know what people like Gabi would have been saying. I think that they would have created the impression that they know it all. And yet their family member, his family members are in charge now, and the economy has crashed. We've borrowed ourselves to the bottom,
Right.
and literally crashed the economy to the point where we are saying, look, people who have retired, unless we put all your monies that you had saved with us in government bonds together and use it up, the economy is going to crash. Is that the kind of a government that we got for ourselves? And if this is competence, then I'm wondering what incompetence would have been. It would have perhaps meant that all of us were going to die.
And I have got the tweets. So the sixth one, which I found rather interesting. He says, for a former Chief Justice to take up a noble cause such as she did, but at such a late hour when all was done, and for all that publicity, she owed it to herself and her social standing to have understood the issues far better than what she exhibited last Friday. She is bigger than that. That's what he said.
Well,
That's what he said.
Well, I'm not surprised that it's coming from people like Gabi, who wanted Ghanaians to believe that they know it all, and they would do a miracle for Ghana, and then Ghanaians entrusted them with the power, and here we are. And all they can do is to further abuse and insult those who decide to assert their rights as either unknowledgeable or being unaware of things that they ought to have been aware of. I am not surprised that coming from someone like Gabi.
Time will tell how all of this pans out. But let's get into the daily graphic now. We'll overcome challenges soon, President Akufo-Addo assures nation. How soon? Well, maybe we'll get details on page 13 of the paper. 7 STEM schools fully operational. That's according to Education Minister Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. Then there's domestic debt exchange program. Government secures 80% target. On the back page, GHS receives cancer treatment equipment, and there's GES pledges school block for Atiga Gome. All right, so let's get into those stories. And government secures 80% target. That's the DDEP. The government has secured more than 80% of targeted participation in the domestic debt exchange program. A source familiar with the process has told the Daily Graphic. According to the source, the Central Securities Depository was conducting the final reconciliation of the numbers to ensure that there was no double counting. The deadline for tendering existing bonds for new ones ended last Tuesday, February 7th this year. However, some people encountered technical challenges while accessing the platform to tender a swap. The government therefore provided an administrative window up to last Friday to enable such persons to tender. However, the Ministry of Finance, which is spearheading the DDEP, did not change the date for settlement. The actual day on which new sovereign debt instruments with agreed features will be presented to existing holders on exchange for their old ones, which bear higher coupons, that is, in interest rates, which made it challenging for the government to honor continuously given the liquidity challenges the country is facing. And it goes on to enumerate the different categories. So category A, designed for persons below 59 years, category B, for bondholders 59 years and above, and category C, which captures all other bondholders, including corporate institutions such as banks, insurance companies, and fund managers. The first two types of bonds have their maturity periods, that is the tenor, reduced from 15 to 5 years, with a coupon interest pegged at 15 and 10% respectively, and there are further amendments. At least this deal is better than the first or the second, as it had been initially with the different exemptions. But still, many people are unhappy about it. The Individual Bondholders Forum, Martin Kpebu's end, Senyor Hosi's end, they say it's a united front, but definitely some people still very unhappy with this DDEP, prominent among them pensioners. Let me just add, since we've already started talking about the DDEP, let me just add what the president says, and maybe the education minister as well, then we can take your quick thoughts, Suleimana, if you'll just indulge me. So let me get to page 13 now. President Akufo-Addo has given an assurance that the policy measures being implemented by the government will drive the nation to overcome its current economic challenges shortly and bring relief to the people. Consequently, he has rallied Ghanaians to make sacrifices and work hard to support efforts at restoring normalcy in the economy, saying that, quote, sooner rather than later, we shall overcome. The president gave the assurance when he addressed the opening Eucharist of the 18th Consultative Council meeting of the Anglican Church at the University of Ghana last Sunday. And finally, this story here for your reflection. 7 STEM schools fully operational. When the education minister gets it wrong, we bash him fair and square. If there's something right as well, we must, to be fair, highlight it. So the Ministry of Education has announced the full operationalization of 7 science, technology, engineering, and mathematics schools. They are the Awaso STEM School in the Western Region, Abomosu STEM School in the Eastern Region, Bosomtwe Girls STEM School, and those are his areas, and the Bosomtwe STEM School, both in the Ashanti region, while the Kwase Sektech, already existing school, is located in the Ahafo region, the Accra High School, engineering only, in the Greater Accra region, and the Kwesemke STEM School, newly constructed in the Northeast region. The 7 have been included in the computerized school selection and placement for the 2023 academic year. My only problem with this, while it's very laudable, the fact that we have existing schools that lack a lot of these STEM facilities, and we are not doing much about them. Any reflections on these 3?
Well, it's good to learn about some schools coming up. And as we've said, the ideal situation would be that those that are existing are well equipped. I think that we really have serious challenges with our educational system in our country. And again, we are reduced to the phenomenon of sweet talks all the time. The GES, for example, I think gave a school reopening date that's just about less than 10 days or so, or 2 weeks away. But as we sit, kids who are supposed to be placed in secondary schools haven't been placed. So I have a nephew, for example, who is among those who wrote their BECE the last time, so their results were in, and we've still been waiting for placement. So a week or 10 days to when GES indicated that the placement will be done, we still don't know where these cases are going. And so those are very, very fundamental issues that I think have to be addressed. But all said and done, well, if these STEM schools are indeed what they are supposed to be, is a positive development. I think that journalists may want to visit these schools and bring whatever is in there to the people of Ghana to learn about, so that if it is something that is so inspiring, we inspire ourselves to even do more. If there are issues that requires concerns, we express them so that they are addressed. On the DDEP, I think that, well, whatever it is, the fundamental point is that the economy has crashed, and the government has collapsed the economy, and certain steps, very, very difficult steps, needed to be undertaken to sort of salvage the situation. And that is why we've gotten ourselves to the DDEP. We shouldn't call it, by this fine name, that it is something unique and positive for our country. It basically means that the economy has collapsed, and people whose monies were lodged with government, the government had to manipulate and adopt different ways of keeping the money for a while in order for the government to be able to run. If you recall, this is perhaps the only government that celebrates successes in borrowing, because those times, the government would want us to celebrate the fact that, oh, the Eurobond has been so oversubscribed. Oh, Eurobond has been oversubscribed. This is a great government. That is Ghana's Eurobond to be oversubscribed. It means that people are getting confidence in the system and da. Yes, oversubscription happened years over years. But as former Chief Justice said, where is the money? Look, there are government facilities for which borrowing was done, and as we speak, nothing has happened. Go to La General Hospital, monies were procured, but go there, all you see is heaps of sand there. The president talks about the fact that we are at a point where Ghanaians must sacrifice. I think it is becoming really insulting for the president to continue to keep calling on Ghanaians to sacrifice when he has the biggest sacrifice to make and he is refusing, even as multiple Ghanaians from all walks of life, from all sectors, have been calling on him for the last 6 months, if not the year, to sacrifice. And he is refusing, and yet he thinks that it is right for him to always call on Ghanaians to sacrifice. What has the president done to show that on his part he is sacrificing? He is keeping this bloated government. Government continues to spend in a wasteful way, and then you continue to call on the people to sacrifice. If he hasn't seen the sacrifices that Ghanaians have already gone through, then I believe that is quite insensitive on the part of the president. I mean, the difficulties that Ghanaians are in, and they are coping. People are not out there on the streets demonstrating. People are still engaging. People are not doing anything to create instability in this country. And if in the mind of the president that is not sacrifice enough, then I think that that is the highest form of insensitivity on the part of the president. People continue to say, Mr. President, we need you to sacrifice. When people resigned and vacancies happened, what are we seeing? The president, if you go to the finance ministry, the same finance ministry that has crashed the economy, still has 3 deputy ministers. What has the president done? When Edubuahin resigned or was sacked,
right,
he's brought Honorable Amin Anta to replace him. We still have John Kuma. We still have the lady MP from the Eastern region.
Abna.
Still as deputy minister. Abna Sewa Asare or something. So it's a deputy minister. And then we have a Foriata. 4 ministers managing the economy. And this is what they have done for the people of Ghana. To collapse the economy and turn on to pick the monies that belong to the people of Ghana. But yet the president thinks, look, we still have to keep 4 ministers. You go to some ministries and there are 3 or 2 deputy ministers. And yet you don't see any results for it. And the president keeps calling on Ghanaians to sacrifice. How much more does he want Ghanaians to do? Bearing all these difficulties. And people are calm. People are carrying their waters in the streets. People are carrying the loads, selling. In the markets, people are not buying. Market women are so quiet. If that is not sacrifice, what does the president want the people of Ghana to do? And why is he not sacrificing and rather wants the people of Ghana to continue to sacrifice under the circumstances which he and his government has created? I think that is highly insensitive. And the earlier the president demonstrated that he cares, the better. The other thing is that I think the president must also stop promising, because he's always been promising since day one. Even before he became president, he was promising. Up until being president, he kept promising. Things are going to be this, things are going to be that, things are going to be that. We are going to be over soon. Things will be better soon. Nothing is happening. In fact, things are getting worse under him. And how long does he think he would continue to promise and the people of Ghana will believe it? I believe the president should know that the people of Ghana don't trust him anymore when he promises. And that's the reality. And we must speak the truth to each other now.
Right.
People in Ghana have lost trust and confidence in the president in terms of his promises, and he must stop promising.
Suleimana, we have some 6 minutes, yeah? Let's make the most of them by combining these two stories. They are linked, one from the Daily Graphic, one from the Ghanaian Times newspaper. So the story captured by the Daily Graphic on page 17, in fact, the middle spread of the paper. Galamsey activities destroy electricity equipment. And the Ghana Grid Company Limited has said the activities of illegal miners are affecting power transmission infrastructure in some parts of the country. It said the illegal miners, that is the Galamseyers, were either digging around the bases of transmission towers or stealing the steel beams used to build transformers for their illegal mining activities. The CEO, Ebenezer Kofi Esienyi, said this when he took his turn at the Ministry of Information's State of Agencies report series in Accra yesterday. Tied to that, the Ghanaian Times newspaper on page 12 says, 2.7 billion Ghana cedi debt threatens power distribution as government takes steps to avoid disruption. And the CEO again of Gridco, Mr. Esienyi, says, two major power distribution companies in the country, the Electricity Company of Ghana and the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, owed his outfit 2.7 billion Ghana cedis. A situation, he said, was impeding operations of the company, especially in the areas of infrastructure development and the efficiency of Gridco's operations. We all know that government is one of the highest, debtors to these entities, the ECG, NEDCO, and others. And that also reflects on the work of Gridco, the VRA, among others. Quick reflections on these stories as we move on?
Well, for me, I've always said that it's great that even as we are in this huge challenge, our power system is still running. And for me, that is perhaps the lifeline. And so whatever it takes to keep our power on, we should do that. We don't want to get into a situation where there could be chaos and violence, because the struggling and the suffering then becomes quite unbearable. And I think that the fact that power is still running is a very, very important thing. And I hope and believe that whatever steps that have to be taken to keep the power running would be taken. And the issue of Galamsey and its impact on power distribution. I think Galamsey, in all its forms, is just about distraction. Over the period, efforts have been made, attempts have been made, and different initiatives have been put out there: community mining initiative, introduction of new ways of mining without causing severe damage to the environment have been implemented. But it all still comes down to the conduct and character of our people, where it appears, look, whatever it is that you do to make money, just do it and forget about the consequences. And we're not getting inspiration from leadership, because it appears that on the part of leadership, that is also the model. Well, just do anything to make money, even if that would mean impoverishing the state or the country. And people have that mindset, therefore. That's, look, if you have the opportunity to mine and make money, even if it's about destroying the water body or destroying the power sector, yes, go ahead and do it. Everybody is making money. So why would you want to say you just want to be patriotic and therefore stay poor? But I think that is something that we really have to work at and ensure that people begin to know that, yes, you may make money, but you need the environment to survive. If you are wealthy and the environment is damaging, there's nothing you can do. So I would call on the authorities to continue to do more. I know the Minerals Commission has been doing quite some significant work in terms of improving the mining sector in our country. I would urge them to continue to do more and ensure that at least we get to a point where even if people are mining, they will be mining in ways that would not be posing threat to the environment as well as infrastructure such as the power distribution system that you talked about.
And while we destroy our water sources and our agriculture, especially cocoa, as it's affected, the Chinese are now producing cocoa bit by bit. In fact, according to the OEC, exports in 2020, China exported $17.5 million in cocoa powder, making it the 16th largest exporter in the world. And I read a story, I just didn't save the link. But the thrust of the story was that the Chinese, with the little batches they are exporting now, claim this is uncompromised. It is produced from unpolluted sources. Can you imagine that? That is how they are branding their cocoa. In other words, ours is polluted. And some of their population is here contributing to that population. Yet they are producing cocoa and saying it is coming from unpolluted sources. When we'll wake up and smell the coffee, only God knows. But that's the story in there. The Ghanaian Times, other stories, GES to build school in Atigagome after 8 school children drowned in Volta Lake. I'm sure you followed that story. Huge support for Houghton, Chris Houghton, as Black Stars coach, the former Tottenham Hotspur man. Police gunned down suspected armed robbers at Chive Potame. And then there is fake documents used to claim ownership of imported rice, OSP tells court. Do you have any reflection very quickly on the Volta story about the 8 that died and the situation there currently? And if maybe you have anything to say on Chris Houghton, we'd be glad to hear.
Well, it's a sad development. Our commiserations to the family of these kids. It's unfortunate that we, as a country, would often wait for disaster to happen before we adopt mitigation measures. I mean, it has happened. There's nothing we can do to bring them back. That's really, really unfortunate. It's good that the GES has taken steps to construct a school in the community so that the kids are saved all these perilous journeys they have to make every morning in order to get basic education. As I said, commiserations to the family. We wish them well and hope that this never happens again in the area or anywhere in Ghana. Chris Houghton. Well, it's great that finally we're getting a replacement for Otuado. I believe this is somebody who has quite some experience. He will need the support of all of us. I know at some point we all turn ourselves to be coaches, but we should give him the needed support and encouragement and continue to support our national team, the Black Stars,
right,
which is one of the ways of rallying ourselves together even when we are in difficulty. So let's give him the support, help him build a team, and rally our Black Stars together for them to be at the glory days that we knew the Black Stars to be, and hopefully bring back a trophy within the shortest possible time.
The Daily Guide, I'll just combine a few papers. We'll take a look at the stories. OSP drags Baumia's administrator and 3 others to court. I'm sure you follow that story as well. Financial issues there, malfeasance of some sort, a failure to disclose. There's also doctor rejects Ablakwa's car. I found this interesting. So the story says a medical doctor at the Catholic Hospital in Bato in the Volta region, Dr. Kofi Efa, has rejected a Honda SUV car from the Member of Parliament for Noton over source of funding. The hardworking medical doctor rejected the car, albeit all manner of persuasion by the lawmaker that the car was bought from his share of the common fund, personal contribution, and donations by some unknown persons close to him. Another reason Dr. Efa rejected the car had to do with a lack of robust structures for rewarding health workers in the district, which would end up having people describe the gift as favoritism. I'll have you reflect on that story, but before you do, so basically the car was given to him as a gift, but he felt that looking at the circumstances surrounding it, he couldn't determine, first of all, the source of funding, and secondly, this would maybe make him stand out as someone being favored rather than have structures to reward people in the community. The Chronicle says, meeting with heads of SOEs, Akufo-Addo is annoyed, says their failures are being blamed on him and his ministers. Mahama, my wise counsel on the economy was ignored. Now, finally, the Economy Times. Bank of Ghana hopeful of economic rebound. Bank of Ghana's 40 billion Ghana cedi overdraft to government to undergo haircut. and Ghana cocoa export to double as government targets $4.1 billion in revenue. We wait to see, but of course, if it is achieved, that would be quite a positive feat. Maybe one or two to reflect on as we leave.
Well, the cocoa sector is always of interest to me because I grew up in the cocoa growing community and worked, in cocoa farms when I was a child, and so it's always of interest to me. And one thing that I've always wondered is that we've been producing and selling cocoa for so many decades now, and every year, the government, not just this government, every government that I have known, has had to go for what is called cocoa syndication loan. Then you ask yourself, so what do we do with the cocoa that we sell year on year? Why is it that as a country, we still haven't come to the point where we are saying that the profits from last year's or last season's cocoa and the previous season's cocoa sales have given us enough for us to be able to not go for another loan in order to buy cocoa?
I think you know the answer to that. It's because the politicians find it as a good way of dipping their hands into this, use it for different things. It's not just for the cocoa sector. We all know what the money does. So,
yeah, absolutely. So it's just to raise it up there and to say that, look, so it's been failure on failure on failure from government to government. It's not just this government. All the governments that I have known of has had to be doing that. On the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwe's gift and
that'll be the final one, briefly. Our time is up.
I think that, well, we've all been reading and following the very progressive steps that the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwe has been taking within his constituency, and people have been marveling, how is he doing that? Why are other MPs unable to do what he's doing? But on this occasion, I think that I will be very, very interested in getting the full details of the story, because if what we are being told from the paper is really what it is, I think the doctor also deserves a lot of commendation, because then that is a doctor of integrity who says, look, yes, I'll be delighted to have this, but first of all, what is the source? As an MP, where did you get the money to do this? And then secondly, why must I even take this in this kind of environment where people are likely to say, why am I being favored? So that's also somebody of integrity who deserves to be celebrated.
Right.
But as I said, it's important that one gets the full details so that indeed, if the doctor deserves some commendation, we do that. And of course, if Okudzeto was giving it honestly in appreciation of whatever the doctor has been doing in the community, then of course we have to also praise and commend him and then see how eventually it is all sorted out.
Well, we praise and commend you for making the time to join us this morning, Suleiman Abrahima. We're grateful and we wish you the very best of this Tuesday.
Thank you so much and have a great day.
Suleiman Abrahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Before we go into the sports, happy birthday to Rita Nyantechiwa Dankwa, CEO, Rand Events at Teshi Tebibiano. More grace is what we wish you today. Well, the news review, as you're fully aware, is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They made it possible for us to bring you this review. We're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. You can locate us at Spintex in Accra, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma, behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiama and Zama. Reach us on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease, but only the beginning of sports. Up next.